Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SMB Virtual Series Seminar. I'm happy to actually share with you today some of my own experiences, I guess, working in the cloud, which is quite interesting and poetic, isn't it? To begin with, I had the opportunity to work with Salesforce.com to manage, the sales pipeline. That was one of my very first experiences many years ago, and one that's taught me the benefits of having all of that data stored and having the ability to access it anywhere in the world was quite a breakthrough, I guess, in many ways. And then came products like Microsoft Live and WebEx, which enabled me to simultaneously have conversations and interact with partners and clients alike right around the regions that I was working in. Again, an amazing bonus to be able to do this without having to board a plane, go through security and all of that type of stuff in order to have the one very important meeting. Without really embracing the cloud completely as yet, I do believe that in-person meetings are still very important. However, there are needs out there, including my own needs in business, and that of my clients, that are obviously, requiring the solutions that we're going to touch on today. So to begin with, I wanted to really talk about, in general, the needs of these SMBs out there. One of the outcomes that many CFOs and CEOs and business leaders face is a careful management of that cost. And business productivity software can be quite expensive. The sales operations is in itself quite a challenge when you have multiple people either doing business development or account managing or upselling, cross-selling, and what have you, running around working sometimes on the same client, but looking at it from a different perspective and obviously managing that client at different stages of the client life cycle itself. Having access to CRM solutions stored in the cloud, for me personally, has been very useful when I've collaborated with colleagues as far out as in the US, the UK, Australia, and we're trying to manage a particular sales pipeline for a particular client. HR is another place where data is stored, confidential and secure data about clients, about internal clients, particularly about staff. And finally, accounting and financial management is obviously very important as well. Well, for many of you here, you're probably familiar with all of this. However, some people that I've met in my business practice on a daily basis aren't fully aware that all of that is actually part and parcel of the cloud solution. Office productivity software on demand and on the go. Virtual meetings being enabled right through the web, and storage and security, and finally customer data modeling, which is a fancy word for finding out what your customers want. Are you giving it to them? And if so, what else can you provide to them that's going to help your business grow? Beyond this, we can look at the basic needs of your everyday productivity software, such as word processing, spreadsheets, and presentations. Things that we all need to function on a day-to-day basis that is often stored on a company laptop or potentially on a company server. And the online conferencing capabilities is something else altogether. Right now I'm talking to you via the Cisco VoIP system, for instance, allowing me to transmit both voice and visual video data right across the region, which is quite amazing. Think about it, 10 years ago we just started to get our head around the internet and email, things like Hotmail, which we'll touch on later on. Security systems, we'll talk about that, VPN network capabilities, and basically the data warehousing side of the equation. This is effectively what we'll touch on today, and let's see what IT professionals are saying out there. Well, the cloud is really a medium, if you like, that can enable companies to move quickly through their own evolution in terms of their needs. this is why, according to the NetApp survey, 70% of IT professionals really saying that virtualization is their top priority going forward. Unfortunately, though, many IT professionals admit to have only a partial understanding of what that is. And I can talk about examples even to do simple things like putting a little bit of tracking code on your website to measure how many visitors you get and what pages they look at and things like that is oftentimes a consultative discussion that I have on a daily basis with IT professionals, naturally wanting to protect the integrity of their own website and the information that is transmitted as a consequence of a third party tracking the visitors to their site. They're worried. So let's look at that, and hopefully we can dispel some of those fears and those worries. The cloud market today is really underpinned, as we all know, by demand, consumer demand. And the advertising and digital content today drives that demand generation for cloud computing. And in many ways, the demand for online content, online services, and online entertainment creates a market, doesn't it, for advertising and digital content. So here we can see really a very much an ecosystem, if you like, where you have consumers out there. They want search results. They want to be able to communicate via Hotmail and Gmail and all of those, email free email clients, and that creates a whole range of ways that businesses can value add via advertising, which then, of course, creates demand for cloud computing. Let's look at that in a little bit more detail. There are a billion internet users today, and there will be billions more tomorrow. So this trend and this demand for products and services as enabled through the web is not going to go back. It can only get bigger. We all agree on that one, I'm sure. As we talked about, the digital advertising and the e-commerce demand is really increasing. In turn, demand to provide storage in the cloud. For instance, most email platforms offer megabytes or gigabytes, worth of storage data for your own email address. So you can imagine there's a need for servers, for networks, for infrastructure to store and provide a platform for emails to go back and forth all around the world. Software on demand is universally available. For some of you who use Google Docs, you know exactly what I mean. You can access word processing and Excel and even PowerPoint type functionalities right through the web. It's scalable and it's relatively inexpensive. And the markets are really expanding in response to the need to provide more core productivity in SMB segments. And in many ways, especially when it comes to new software that you have not used previously, I can think of many. It could be digital imaging and those kinds of software that I only use occasionally. I don't really see the need personally to buy a license. So I tend to use those software that's available, sometimes freely, sometimes for a small fee, right on the web. Let's look a little bit more here at the communication management platform, leveraging, as we talked about, for the online and the telecommunication platforms such as VoIP, which we're currently using right now. And in many ways, we're using the telepresence capabilities of WebEx. It goes without doubt that this is saving me and all of us here time and money. Imagine if you had to book a ticket, get a hotel, fly somewhere, have a full-day conference, and the cost and time it would take would be sometimes very difficult to justify as professionals, and certainly in my case and the case of my customers, need to multitask many activities simultaneously. So let's look at this, the cloud service market today. Well, Today, cloud-based advertising makes up roughly 60% of that demand for business processes. You've got e-commerce, we touched on before, HR, human resource payments. And over the next few years, it goes without saying that we're going to see an exponential range of services that's going to grow from here. Looking at some practical examples, we can see that since Gmail's birth in 2004, that Google itself has taken advantage of this and built a powerful cloud-based email platform. And before that, Hotmail, many years before that, blazed the trail. And today, when it comes to providers of cloud services, Salesforce, as we talked about before, has roughly 78% of the market share. The market share of demand, the market share of services being provided, followed by NetSuite, which has 13%. So taking into account that the free email clients such as Gmail and Hotmail and so on and so forth are used by just about everybody, I'm sure, on this webcast, including myself. I have several Gmail and Hotmail IDs for different purposes, of course. But you can see how we all use this stuff every day. And I even have Google and different applications on my BlackBerry. That means I can not only check, my corporate email, but I also check personal email if I needed to. In spite of it all, Salesforce currently, still has 78% market share, and I think that's quite amazing. So we can see today that there's a paradigm shift really in progress. In the old days, many of us, whether we worked in SMBs or large businesses, were still dependent largely on enterprise software, which came at a significant price. And we all understand that an investment like that sometimes could be a big chunk of our budgets. And sometimes we need to upgrade, we need to replace that software. We pay all of it up front. It can be quite expensive. We need to secure multiple licenses. We need to train our users. We need to maybe buy into consulting services from the vendors. All of this can add up to a big chunk of our budgets. So all of this means that during times of boom or times of bust, we needed to either scale up or scale down on our needs for those kinds of productivity softwares. Today, as we've been alluding already, all of that can be done, and we can quickly scale up or scale down as required at a very low cost base in order to have those productivity softwares rise and fall depending on our own demand for it. And that, I think, is quite interesting. It makes a big difference, and it does help businesses out there to grow quickly, if that's the need, or to slow down and work accordingly with their vendors of software. I want to touch on really on the growth of the cloud itself. The first expo took place in 2007 in New York City with roughly 415 delegates. And the 2008 expo had 5,000 delegates. So you can see there's roughly 10 times more. And they had 100 sponsors and exhibitors. So people were already taking this very, very seriously. Business professionals in IT especially realize that there's something going on there where they can A, save money, and B, obviously make money. The prediction today is that by 2012, there are estimates that there will be 50,000 delegates. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a fad. Those facts are irrefutable. So my message that I would like to share with you, one that I myself practice, is to be ready, to get organized and take action. On a daily basis, I meet customers in various sectors and at different stages of their business evolution. Some are SMBs like yourselves, and some are large ones. I believe that the virtual products and services that's made available through the cloud are useful for everybody, including big and small customers or potentially customers of the cloud services. Let's see what the big companies like Merrill Lynch and Gartner and IBM are saying. They're predicting that this market will be worth roughly, according to Merrill Lynch, $160 billion by 2011. Gartner is saying $150 billion by 2013, and IBM is predicting roughly $126 billion by 2012. That is a lot of money. As you can probably imagine, they're being already invested and spent today. The question I would like to ask you is, how much of your IT budgets do you currently spend on the cloud? And to start to think about where the cost savings are going to be for you as you allocate those precious resources into other areas, maybe to grow your sales force base, or maybe to look at increasing the product range and spending that money on research and development. So in a simple way, this is where I believe many of the other parts of the world who have embraced cloud computing already practicing it. So I encourage you guys to think about it today. I refer to SaaS, or software as a service, in simpler terms. I talk about software on demand. And a quick example, or I guess more importantly, the right question to ask is, how does this work? So in many cases, for some of you people here who are maybe more new to this concept of cloud computing, you have vendors who create software, they host it, and they operate it for you right there in the cloud. With a computer, a browser, and internet access, you can have access to those services, and you can run that software without having to download any of the operational software itself on your laptop. Therefore, you have the option of having instant usability without having to pay for a year's worth of licensing or downloading and buying the actual software itself, or go on a model like a pay-as-you-go model. From my way of thinking, this allows you the ability to have flexible response time to changing market conditions, which is what we talked about before. So when it comes to this software on demand for SMB, I believe that it does fill a niche and a gap in the SMB market itself. And I really want to focus on this a little bit more closely. The scalability and reliability of this productivity software is really the key driver to the growth. And I want to emphasize reliability and affordability. That's very important. And I believe that both SMBs and large companies alike can benefit from this. Let's listen out in a little bit more detail. We talked about documents, spreadsheets, presentation slides. All of that can be accessed on the web. For some of you guys who are definitely IT professionals, you will understand that you can run multiple versions of Office on the same desktop. It could be to do with a privacy thing. It could be to do with a security thing or something like that. There are reasons for this. All of this means that you don't need to download anything. That's the key here. I've talked about it before, and many of you already get the point, but I just want to labor on that because it is a fundamental distinction between buying a box with one CD that you used to pop into your floppy, into your CD drive and install the software. Today, using a simple browser, you can access all of that. I think the key benefits for me really has been voice and visual. The ability to webcast a PowerPoint to 10 people, as I did, I think, yesterday, broadcasting some folks out in Korea. The day before, I was talking and broadcasting some slides with people in Thailand. Right through the day, every day, I could be virtually having those meetings with people. And with a video cam, that means I'm actually able to even see them, making sure they're paying attention to what I'm saying, which is fantastic. It eliminates the travel time, the money, having to leave my home, pack my bag. Doesn't mean I don't travel for business. I certainly do. but I do this perhaps at a later stage of the sales cycle for a critical business meeting, absolutely. When it comes to online security systems, many IT professionals or even non-professionals are often worried, and they're worried maybe about storing stuff in the cloud. Well, I myself have used, you know, the VPN capabilities, and there are many providers out there. Citrix, I believe, is one of them. Cisco VPN is another one I currently use. You know, e-commerce has security issues. I understand that, but somebody who hacks into your mainframe server and starts to do funny things with your IT system, I mean, that happens as well, whether you store your stuff in the cloud or not. One is not necessarily more secure than the other. I mean, that's the point I want all of us here to talk about and discuss and debate, if you like. The other thing is data warehousing and data on demand. In many cases, you have a ton and a wealth of data about your own customers. What about making good use of this? Finding out if John Smith, who bought maybe car parts from you, could potentially be interested in buying something else. This type of data modeling is called propensity modeling, understanding likelihood to purchase. Today, not only can you store your data in the cloud, you can actually access propensity modeling, likelihood to purchase software or services from the same people who store your data. I think that's interesting because normally these things are not cheap. Effectively, it gives us an opportunity, especially if we just want to do basic propensity modeling, to use the services and then, if need be, bring on board experts and consultants to help you further understand how to get more benefit from your existing customer database. There are a lot of opportunities for SMBs, and I think we've talked about this in quite a lot of detail. But the main message for me is to be able to access core business applications within one click. You know, WebEx has it, Live has it, where you have instant meeting. I could get a call from a key client, the CEO of a company, and I'm thinking, yes, I understand what you want to talk to me about. Let me show you what we've got. Are you at your desktop right now? Yes. Can I just quickly send you an email? Please click on that link, and within moments they can see my screen, and I can share with them exactly what I mean using either you know, my PowerPoint or something like that. You know, PricewaterhouseCoopers are encouraging all of us to really use best practice. And best practice means using your budgets wisely. Ownership of software is not as important as the practical benefits of software. Let me talk a little bit about saving costs. Saving costs is important. Saving costs and saving the environment, I think, is just an incredible concept. Is the cloud greener? Well, I believe so. I believe that by storing all of that stuff in the cloud, you can reduce your energy consumption by 93%. Okay? That means less carbon emissions. The planet will stop to warm up. Oceans will stop to rise if we all do something about it. And it's not just about putting stuff in the cloud. We have to do everything. But I think you get the point here that if we do not need to have batteries of servers right there in our office, in our basement, in our IT centers, we can have a shared model that there's going to be economies of scale, right? Air conditioners will run more efficiently. You don't have to cool down those server farms. Some people say it's cutting their electricity bill by more than $10,000 a year. I mean, one company alone saves $61 million in energy bills. So that's just an amazing saving right there. Saving that translates immediately into a, I guess, into profitability for you guys. So think about this very carefully. according to Rackspace's latest Green survey, not everybody is convinced that cloud computing has green benefits. And yet, just ask yourself a question. If you only use what you currently need, isn't that in itself a saving? Not having to run server farms, cooling, all of that, expenditure on resources, as just to keep your data alive. If you don't have to do any of this and you only pay what you need, isn't that going to save you money? So my personal perspective and my opinion, personally, is definitely a saving there, and definitely one way for SMBs to add millions of dollars on their bottom line. So I'm hearing different messages from different people, but according to Rackspace's latest Green survey, 14% are currently evaluating cloud computing. So of the 200-odd attendees we have today, if only 30 of you actually evaluate it, and 7% or roughly 15 of you actually do something about it, we can literally save hundreds of millions of dollars and do our part to help the planet heal from the global warming consequences of industrialization. The second survey is telling me that 46% saying that cloud computing was not part of their overall strategy. I encourage those today listening to us, and of the 200-odd people, that's roughly about 80 or 90 people, to seriously begin to think about it if you haven't thought about it before. The cost benefits of virtualization, we refer to that as total cost of ownership, or TCO, can be quite significant, not on a year-by-year basis, but the time it takes for you to buy the servers, set them up, buy the software, host it, train your guys, and maybe have a life value from that software of, say, 5 to 10 years, best case scenario. I guess, the scalability cost benefits are certainly there. We've made a point for that already. It reduces the downtime it takes to get productivity benefits, the CAPEX issues, and CAPEX here for some of you non-CFOs or non-financial, CAPEX is capital expenditure. It's just an acronym for software upgrades can be minimized because all of that's done in the cloud. You don't not even need to know. You just get a little update saying, new version. You're using the latest version of this productivity software. You didn't have to install anything. You have to go through all of that process and getting approval, so additional budgets and so on and so forth. All of that means that you can run everything about your IT requirements at minimal cost while you focus on working on the business rather than in the business. Okay, cloud was particularly useful for some of my clients last year when we were all experiencing the effects of the financial tsunami. Even Google admits that the cost saving or the innovation made possible by cloud has helped their businesses and their customers and themselves, work more effectively and more efficiently during those lean times. We've all been through it, so we'll know what that means. And particularly in those days, the attention was being focused on how we're going to save money. Obama, the first president using a BlackBerry, the first president who used Facebook and Twitter on their campaign, and to this day communicates out there to the citizens of America, and in fact anybody who wants to listen to what he's saying using social media, has mandated that they're going to cut spending on hardware and software. And the only way you can cut spending and still get maximum productivity and maximum benefits is by using cloud computing. So effectively, virtualization spending will grow by 12%. And at the very least, much of that's going to be driven by governments realizing that owning a piece of hardware and saying that the software belongs to you and for you to use is not the main objective. The main objective is to get productivity benefits instantly. The discussion points I think that we can begin to talk about is to do with security. Issues to do with property rights, we will not ignore that. I think that's very important. Confidentiality, mass migration of all of that data in the cloud. Is it safe? You know, could it disappear? I mean, these are questions that we're all asking ourselves. And in terms of the raw economics, according to Jonathan Koomey from Yale, well, there's a strong argument for that. But at the same time, I think we should really ask the questions such as, is it safe? Is my data safe? That's very important to all of us. You know, integrating the cloud-based applications with data that you're still storing on premises, how do we do this? Well, that's not for me to say, but it's for you to ask your vendors, for you to ask your cloud services consultant. And I encourage you to do just that. Why don't you just ask them, is it safe? Can I store some of that stuff on my premises? What's the best equilibrium that we can reach here? Please also ask them questions around privacy. What about network bandwidth? What about you have staff that are running around? I mean, what kind of bandwidth will they need to access using the data cards? What about the risk? There are quite a lot of risks there, and we've talked about that. And you know, legal issues are still being, you know, explored, and compliance and auditing as well still being explored. And I really think that we should talk about interim solutions. If I was to do this for my organization, and I don't have to, we have professionals dedicated to that, but if I was in charge of it, these are the questions I'd be asking. Is there an interim solution? And I encourage you guys to do that. I think going forward, you really need to look at your business today and to also look at your business 5 years from now. Ask yourself where I can save money. How can I do this? And effectively, how can it benefit both my staff as well as my customers? So thank you for your time. I encourage you now to start asking me questions. I can see there's been tons of it. Just bear with me as we go through each one of them. Actually, I believe the moderator would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Daniel, for the interesting insight. We have now come to the question and answer segment, and we have already received several questions from the audience. So the first question that came from the audience is, does the SMBs or small and medium businesses have a real interest in cloud computing so far? Daniel, over to you.
Yes, certainly they have had a benefit by a lot of those clients. There's been a lot of interest. For some, especially who have used partial services, maybe they started off with CRM on demand, or they started to use VoIP, or they started to use some of the services like that, realizing the cost benefits are starting to show up already. Well, according to, I recall a SpiceWorks survey, more than half of the SMBs are already using cloud computing. So I was sharing with you before anecdotal stories, but when it comes to, actual surveys, even if it's done partially, yes, they've already shown interest. They're already doing that. Yeah, I hope I've answered that question.
So the next question, Daniel, thank you. Are there concerns about data privacy and ownership in cloud computing?
Are there concerns about privacy? Of course there is. I myself, I'm concerned. I think for many of us, concern about especially financial data, client data, it's an issue whether I'm storing this in my server farms, in the company premises, right? Somebody could break in, hack into the system, start downloading, or even walk away with the machines. That would be even worse. So having it stored in the cloud in my opinion, is different, but not all that different. Some of the issues I see today is issues to do with hackers hacking into social networks. Now, I read a story on the weekend that somebody had hacked into Twitter, and in fact had looked at even Obama's profile, and to me that was quite interesting. So there are issues to do with privacy, but to be a realist here, I don't think it's any different that having servers storing that data in my basement, and having lock and key or security guards or Dobermans patrolling around, no different than having a firewall around a cloud, quite frankly. So it's common sense prevails. I would encourage you to do ask your cloud consultant to help you answer that question in more detail, for sure.
So the next question that we have here is, apart from cost savings, are there any other benefits in cloud computing?
Well, yes. Are there benefits in cloud computing? Beyond cost, my top two, I would say, is instant access. Upgrades, bugs, all being fixed somewhere in the cloud by somebody, somewhere in the world. All I do is get the benefit, and that's all I care. I don't really care about anything else. As a business professional working with customers in my long 12-hour days, 5 days a week, I don't want to be bothered with that. That's number one benefit. Secondly, we talked about the green benefits, and I think that's very important. For many of us, we must realize already that the planet is not in good shape. Some of us have children, so what about them? If it's not in good shape today, what's going to happen to the planet tomorrow? How are all these people going to survive? And we talked about the green benefits. Do you know leaving your screen on 24/7 for 1 month is equivalent to burning 1 ton of carbon? I don't want to go Nazi on anyone here, but think about, what you're going to save if all of us do this. 200 delegates today or so, hundreds of businesses. If we all applied what we've learned today, how much is that going to make as a difference? So benefits, definitely. A greener planet, a cooler planet, a planet for the next generation.
So the next question, Daniel, is quite interesting. How portable is cloud computing?
Yes, how portable is cloud computing? Well, from my perspective, I could be in China or in Bangkok or in Hong Kong and still access my CRM on demand providers. Data about my customer, who sent the last email to whom at XYZ Proprietary Limited, with whom I'm doing business with. So portable is the key, I think. I think the question is the answer. It's very portable. I think that would be one example. Other examples would be maybe accessing my company's data using my VPN, files, proposals, and collaborating on proposals, especially when at times there's probably 5 or 6 professionals from different business units putting their heads together on my team to come up with some ideas on how we're going to help our clients. So yes, very portable. Definitely so.
So the next question, Daniel, shall SMB consider using popular cloud services such as Google Docs?
Well, to begin with, Google Docs is free. Google Docs is popular, probably because it's free. And while it is not the end game, it does give us a starting point, doesn't it? And for some of you who are not ready to start playing with cloud services, well, do use Google Docs. And if you were wondering, well, was that a big step into the cloud? Well, not really. You're already using the cloud. You're using Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo Mail or something like that, aren't you? I'm sure all of you do. I do. And all of us here have done this for a very long time. So should we consider using that for our business? Absolutely. You're already using it, so it's not really a big question mark. I think it's more about where shall we start, more importantly. It's quick, it's cheap to set up, there's no drawbacks. You can run this in parallel with your existing company-hosted solutions and see how that works out for you. There's so many ways you can actually put your toe in the water without actually jumping in, if you know what I mean.
Thank you, Daniel. Due to the time constraints, we do apologize. Oh, wait a minute. We have one last question. E-commerce has security issues. How do we protect the data link? Okay, so let me rephrase that. How do we protect the data link as the link is the most and will most how do we protect the data link, and what would be the effect of this on the cloud computing market?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. First of all, I believe there's kind of two questions here. One is the security, which you kind of touched on before. Imagine this. I mean, that's the metaphor I've got in my head. You've got this, data warehouse. You've got security guards, and it's all being stored, and it's all belonging to you. No different than having this in the cloud. That's my opinion. Okay, protecting the data link between yourself, for example, accessing your service in the cloud. How do you protect this? Make sure nobody's hacking into it. That's the question, right? I believe, and I'm not a non-techie. I'm just a business user. You need a VPN for that kind of stuff. So please look into it. VPN is probably the way that you're going to get the best protection around it. You can have encryption software running right around firewalling that communication. And if everything goes well, it should be as safe as having this stuff stored in your own company servers.
Okay, we do have one more question. We do have one more question from a gentleman called Arnold. How can we push more users into using the cloud for their business, knowing that the security issues on hacking happens every day?
Yeah. Again, security is front of mind for all of us, isn't it? It's the same for me, no different. I do believe, though, that I think there's no two ways about it. The VPN is the only way to secure, to make this as safe as possible. I don't think that you could run the level of security and give me personally peace of mind, and I'm happy to have people disagree with me. I get peace of mind because I've got a VPN, so that's how I know my communications are secure. At a personal level, as a consumer, and you just hear me out here, guys. We all do internet banking, right? Who's got time to queue up at the teller machine or go into the bank when we've got clients and deadlines to meet and whatever? So to me, that is something that needs to be addressed. Some banks offer tokens to encrypt your passwords and what have you. At a personal level, I think that's equally, well, actually even more important for me. So, sorry, but I've got my own questions here. How do we protect our hard-earned savings? I think corporations have already addressed it via VPN when you're doing, internal communications or accessing customer data. My question out there to banks is, how are you going to protect me, the consumer? Okay? So, yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Due to time constraints, we do apologize for not being able to answer all your questions posted. However, do continue to send us your questions, and we will get back to you via email. The email address will be listed on the screen before the end of this session. Do pay attention. So for more information, please visit the Cisco SMB website at www.cisco.com or email your queries to the address you see on the screen now. Thank you, Daniel. Once again, and all the participants for taking time to attend this webinar. I'm sure all of you and all of us here in the room have gained invaluable knowledge to better understand the power of virtualization that SMBs can tap into. Thank you, and I wish all of you a good evening ahead.